would be happy to invite the director of Moscow Center of the Positive Psychotherapy on stage, Polina Efremova.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Polina Efremova, and seems like I'm an angry speaker this Congress because I'm talking about anger again. But this time, I want to tell you about some bond between guilt and anger. We often hide one feeling under another feeling. And I would like to discuss with you how anger and guilt can hide each other. But first I want to tell you a story. I have a client. She is extremely nice. She is very polite. You feel just so nice in contact with her because she's always very attentive to you. She thinks about your needs, even if you're a psychotherapist. She's trying to catch it. And of course, she has great problems with showing anger. When we tried it on several levels, like when we talked about that, she told, well, no, it's absolutely impossible. I can't show anger to anybody. This is rude. When we tried something with voice, like, can you shout? She was like, no, it's impolite. Sorry, no, I don't do such things. When we tried some body things, like, for example, I told her, okay, can you push me a bit? She didn't answer on this push, and if I pushed a little bit more, she was flying across the room. It seemed like she was doing something specially to fly even further from me. And another thing she had is a furious inner critic inside. So her critical voice was so scary that actually when she was saying it aloud, I was shivering because the words were so angry, so full of hatred, that it was amazing how she could find such terrible words for herself. Let me tell you another story. I have a client, and he came telling that he has problems with controlling his anger. Because when he is not happy with his partner, he insults her, he blames her, he says that it's her fault everywhere, and actually he gets more and more angry. He starts moving himself higher and higher in this feeling, and it's very difficult for him to stop. So each time he finds difficult to catch this anger because he really wants to hurt someone this moment. Let's talk about this a bit more. What is anger? Well, we know it's a feeling, it's an emotion, yeah? A basic emotion. How do we feel when we are angry? It's hot or cold? Who thinks it's hot? Please raise your hands. Okay. Who thinks anger is cold? Okay. Mostly you think it's hot. Where is this heat? Can you show me in your body? Please just show. It's here, in the hands. Okay, I see shoulders, head, face, chest. Okay, shoulders again, hands. Okay. Yeah, so there is a lot of heat here in the chest, in the arms, sometimes in the face. So body is hot and has a lot of energy. It's like the fire which tries to break out. And we usually have some thoughts connected with anger, yeah? Like, I hate it, I'll stop it right now, don't you dare, and so on. Let's think about guilt. Because guilt is a feeling. How do you feel guilt? Is it hot or cold? Is it hot? Who thinks it's hot? Who thinks it's cold? Who thinks it's heavy? Who thinks it's light? Like you're a bit flying? No? Okay, it's heavy, and it's interesting. Some people think it's hot, some people think it's cold, and very often it's cold where? Can those who think it's cold show where is it cold? Back. Okay, back of the head. And where is hot? Can you show cheeks? Oh yeah. So when we talk about body, it's heaviness. And yeah, sometimes cold hands, cold back of the head, and the heat here and sometimes here, but the nasty one, not the one which is burning and trying to burst out, the one which is like itching there, like you're burning from the inside. And I think that I did something wrong, I deserve punishment. And if we think about the emotion standing behind this feeling, it's a lot about anger towards myself. But what are they for? Like, anger has two main functions: protect my territory and my needs, yeah? And destroy the obstacles to my way to the goal. Don't be afraid of the word destroy, yeah? Because sometimes I need to push through something to get where I want. And what is guilt for? I think that there is an important role. One is actually defending myself, because I'm already guilty, I admit it, and I show that I'm already punishing myself, so you can't punish me more. Sometimes people even say, okay, he already has repentance, so we won't do it further, yeah, we understand that he understood everything. And the other part is improving the mistake somehow, well, at least in my mind, because I think that, okay, I understood everything, I'll do another way, other time, so it's okay now. So, I thought that we would talk about who's hiding whom, but anger is before guilt, isn't it obvious? Like, anger is an emotion, it's available from the very birth. We learn to feel guilty from our parents, so it's kind of a process which comes a bit later. So, can we finish now? Yeah, anger is before, so it's okay. But let me tell you a bit more about guilt. Guilt is needed to control our behavior, of course, including the aggressive impulses. And guilt is a construct of superego. And that's interesting. In Russian language, innocent sounds like without guilt. Guilt is also something we have when the feeling we want to show is absolutely unbearable and it doesn't fit here. So I say, I can't feel this feeling, and I feel guilty for even starting to feel this feeling. So, coming back to my guilty client, she's always guilty and madly guilty. When we tried to work with her story, and when we tried to work with her critical voice in her head, I asked her, look, this is just unfair towards your inner child. Like, no one protects her. Like, this inner critical voice is so strong, but where is the other voice who will say, no, stop that? And she stayed silent for a moment and then said, you know what? It's the child who is furious. It's the child who is so angry. And what is the story of this client? Her parents couldn't bear her negative emotions at all. So if she tried to show anger, or if she felt too bad and started crying too much, her parents tried to calm her down in quite a specific way. Shut up, or they could even punch her a bit. So did the emotion go away? No. Did she feel better? No. But she understood that you can't show it. But the energy of anger is already there. It's burning you. It wants to get out. So she turns it on herself. And this is the way to cope with it, because I have the aggressive impulse. I have punishment to disapproval from somebody who is important or mighty, so I understand that I can't show it. I feel anxious and helpless because of that. But when I turn the energy of anger on oneself, on myself, I return the feeling of control. Now I know what to do. Now I know who is guilty. Now I know whom to punish. And it's okay, the situation is controllable again. And let's talk about the other client, who is always angry. He grew up in an unhappy family, I would say. One of his parents was a drug addict. Another parent was trying to save him all the time. The drug addict, I mean, not the client. Nobody was trying to save the client. And actually, the small boy in this situation felt as he's doing something wrong all the time because mommy is not here, she's not paying attention. He's doing everything wrong because the kids are laughing at him. So he started to protect himself somehow. He started to fight for him and saying like, no, it's you who is doing something wrong, who are doing something wrong. It's you who are guilty. It's you who should be punished. Because he was afraid of punishment all the time, and he found a nice way to cope with it. He was the first one to say, no, you deserve punishment. So the process is like feeling guilty. Because of that, I feel, of course, a huge threat to my self-esteem, like ideal and safety, trust, yeah? I can be punished, and I'm afraid of that. And I start blaming the other one to save my picture of good self, and not giving the others the opportunity to punish me. What are the markers of hidden guilt? Because, of course, guilt and anger can be not in such a tight bond. And some of this feeling can hide some other feeling. So let's think about the markers of hidden guilt. First is accent on other person's responsibility. So when I'm angry, I especially emphasize that it's like her or his fault. It's he or she who provoked me. So it was like, you can't blame me because there was something on the outside that was so strong that it happened. The other thing is persuading yourself that the other person deserves it. Like I say, no, well, she acted so that she doesn't deserve anything else. Like he acted in such a way that, well, what could I feel? And another one is losing the logical explanation of the anger. Like, when we're angry, we can, well, if we're not furious and losing control because of the affect, we can explain, I'm very angry because of that. People who are hiding guilt under anger sometimes lose the logical explanation, like, it's just like that. Because, shut up. Just stop asking me. And what are the markers of hidden anger? I think that they are, for example, I do feel guilty, but I have the special amount of guilt that I can take. And if you're going 1 gram more than this amount of guilt, I'm becoming very blaming, like, okay, I deserved my punishment, but this is not my part. And another one, the inner critic is very strong and furious. It's not just saying you did it wrong, you did that wrong. It's killing the person. It's putting the person deep in the ground, something like that. So when I think about my clients, because of course there are not 2 of them, much more. I think about some tips in psychotherapy that help us to find whether it's guilt, anger, or something hidden under them. First is refer to the inner child. You know, it always has the answers. I'm often asking like, okay, but what's inside you? How old are you there? And what does the inner child feel? What is it feeling now? And very often, this inner child has the core feeling, the feeling that was from the very beginning. The second part is try to explore the concept behind the feeling, not behind the situation. Yeah, we know well how to explore the concepts behind the situation. Yeah, we do this when we explore the actual conflict. But spend some time to ask the client, okay, but what does it mean for you to be guilty? When it is obvious to feel guilty? When people have to feel guilty? Or when can you be angry? What is the reason for being angry? What do we usually do when we are angry? And so on. And always look at the other side. Guilt and anger often go together. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
Right, Polina, thank you so much. Polina, there is a saying, so the guilt feeling is the backside of superiority complex. What do you think of this?
Well, you know, I think that when we talk about the superiority complex, it's also about, like, I'm very mighty, I can do anything with this, and also I destroy the borders if I need to, because I can do that. So From one side, when it's guilt hidden, for example, under other feeling, yeah, we can talk about this anger, which is like anger on myself because I can do something, anger on the world because I can destroy it all or change it all as I want. And that's the part that we can explore, but not the only part, I think.
Thank you. All right. Any questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Whenever I think about anger, I always add the letter D in front of anger. It becomes danger. So I'm afraid of it all the time. But tell me how I feel always anger. Not always. We feel as a human being anger and guilty in some of our life course. So tell me how I should express it. I mean, a feeling is inside of us. Mm-hmm. The most important part is how I express towards someone, especially not towards myself, towards somebody without hurting the relationship, because anger is one of the most dangerous cancers of relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. I want also to answer the first part that you said, that I often have fear under anger, and that's what I was telling about. There are not these two emotions that only go together. Yes, sometimes some emotions hide the others. I just wanted to show you this particular case of guilt and anger. And what about showing the anger? I think this is one of the main goals when we work with anger in psychotherapy, to help the client to live with anger and show anger in a constructive way. If you remember my first report about making clients angry, there is a lot of value in understanding how to deal with anger, and the client can learn it from us when we show, like, look, I'm very angry now with, and then we don't tell, like, with you or with him. We explain the behavior I'm angry with, and we explain how we would like to change it, and this is the constructive way. I like to talk with the clients about the level of emotion, because sometimes we are angry and we even shout. But this is an interesting part, because when we shout of anger, we can shout very different things. Like, one is, you fool, I hate you, and so on. And the other one is like, I'm so madly angry about this part, and it is perceived as a very different message by the other person. So I think what we should learn, and what we should learn our clients, is to explain the reasons of the anger and show how we can formulate this phrase of anger, not to show hatred towards the other person, but to show our negative emotions about someone's behavior, for example, or some situation which is happening in our life. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Polina, for your presentation. I have an idea that when we have cases when guilt and anger plays hide and seek, we deal with emotion of the shame beneath them. I think that shame is so burning and unbearable emotion that it needs to be replaced with anger or guilt. What do you think about it?
I think that it is a very interesting idea. And guilt and shame often go together. Now I'm thinking about the cases if there were any that don't have like a lot of shame, because usually they do when they have guilt. They are somehow connected. I'm not sure if the shame is the root of everything, but I like your idea. Thank you for it, El.
Well, it's unbelievably great discussion, and this differentiation between guilt and shame. Yeah, so there is an idea that when you have guilt feeling, you have an external interacts. You have interacts. Yeah, so they have object. They say they're blaming you. Yeah, in the shame, you have lack of interacts. They're just not there. So you are so bad. There is nobody even blame you. So but the idea when you find someone, you create an object even it's temporary. Yeah, so it will be intermediate stage to find this and create this interacts. Wonderful.
Actually, is the idea of the difference between I done something wrong or I am wrong.
Yeah.
When I do something wrong, I feel guilty. When I am wrong, then I feel shame.
Thank you, Gabi.
I just want to add something to what somebody said about, or the question about how we deal with anger. And remember that we have a very nice concept, the key conflict. And this is the answer for how we deal with anger. Professor James Gross from Yale University, he has a lot of books about emotion and how to deal with them. He said that, and there are a lot of parallels between positive psychotherapy and his research. He said that two of the most important way to deal with guiltiness, shame, is first to label them, what you said, to talk about them, not to express them. Expressing means being aggressive, having the energy in your behavior, but talking about them is one of the more adapting way to deal with emotions. And the second is reappraisal. It means to find what I have to learn from this situation, what it has to do with me, this situation. In other words, it's about positive psychotherapy. What I want to ask you, Polina, is about what do you think about people who don't feel guiltiness?
Thank you, Gabi, for the comment and for the question. I really believe that this story is much about the key conflict, and of course there are several ways to solve it. I'll just answer the comment first. And sometimes there is a reason to express anger, sometimes there is a reason to talk about anger, sometimes it's a very good reason to hold it. For example, if you're on a dark street and the guy with the knife tells you, give me all your money, you can be very angry with the fact that your money are gone, but you have the danger to your life, so you hold the anger. What about the people who don't feel guilt? I'm thinking about some mechanisms of disorders of psychic, because usually when we talk about neurotic people, they either hide it or actually have it and show it. So I think that total lack of guilt, like the person who doesn't feel it at all, quite often has problems with other emotions too and other feelings. And it is a good reason to explore where the problems are, where maybe the disorder is, because mostly when the person is adaptive and have the feelings, guilt is also somewhere nearby.
So we need
Sure. I'd say all the emotions and feelings are very useful and we need them for some reason. And of course we learn them not just as a rudiments of the history, they're all very functional, so there are no negative emotions actually, they all mean something and are needed for something.
May I add just a little thing? Well, that's a very good point. Having a guilt feeling means it represents your ability of some self-perception. So you have some structural capacity that are there. Yes. And when we're talking about superiority complex, the idea was that when you're responsible for everything, you put yourself in the center, like you're responsible for everything.
Yeah,
that's another point. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for questions.
You.